So I will acknowledge that I already know that they solved the problem. I will say retrospectively that probably if I had been looking at it, I would have looked at the new raise in payment for city commissioners before I would come up with the solution that they did. The solution they came up was to sacrifice some money towards evaluating the city manager. Then that would have actually just led to another tough question, to be honest, which would be weighing giving that money to the community shelter or giving that money to community development. So I'll just be honest about how that happened after I had answered the question before. That is certainly a ethical quandary, whether or not to put that money towards people who absolutely need it, who will be out in the cold in the winter, or whether to reinvest it. So I definitely would want to avoid a quandary like that, and I think that's why I probably would have moved more towards trying to cut something like a raise for city commissioners or something like that. But I just want to acknowledge that it's a little unfair to ask me at this point since I already know what they did.
So this 2020 budget is an example of some of the short-sighted decisions that our current city commission has made. The chamber advocates for the same things that the people of Lawrence want. Good paying primary jobs, a diverse economic landscape, bringing more technologically savvy businesses into town. These are the things that the chamber advocates for us. You could have found $20,000 in just the increase of city commissioner pay, and you still could have increased city commissioner pay. There's a lot of problems with the 2020 budget. There's a lot of challenges ahead, certainly, and I think one of the ways that we can improve the 2020 budget and the 2021 and beyond budgets is by electing city leaders who understand the full landscape, understand all the assessments and fees and things that we ask of our taxpayers, of our tax base, and make decisions with real leadership in mind.
So we're running a campaign where folks can come to Lawrence, fall in love with our community, and have a job and advance their careers here. Actually, this weekend, I'm moving my fiance to Chicago because he grew up in LA, went to school in Seattle, and then came to KU with the best program in child clinical psychology in the nation. And now his opportunities are outside of our state. I think that is a catastrophe for the future of our community. Economic development in many ways should be at the forefront of city government's priorities. And I believe I'm probably the only candidate who isn't afraid to raise revenues if that is a funding priority that moves the needle. There are lots of ways that we can raise revenues that won't affect folks on low or fixed incomes. And we can do it in a smart way to make the investments we need to make sure that, my fiance John can come back and make Lawrence our home.
I do not support the current proposed cut in economic development funding. I think if anything, we need to increase the amount spent. And then there's been some talk recently about the small business growth. And I think that's something we need to look at funding in addition to the Chamber, the BTPC, and other factors. I think it's where to look. I mean, $20,000 is a rounding error inside the budget. If it's a priority for the city, you can find $20,000.
The $20,000 economic development funding that goes directly to the Chamber of Commerce, that's not the only economic development funding that we have in the city. It's a major part of it, though. I have always been concerned about the source of that money and where it's going. At the same time, we need to recognize that there are other things that we can do in terms of economic development within the city. We have an opportunity zone that I think the city can do some public-private partnerships in to help increase that economic development growth. a lot of the budget concerns, especially within this other budget, cuts were made and other increases were made, and a lot of the people within the city commission were even quoted in the paper recently saying, well, they didn't think too much about certain steps, which is unfortunate. So I think we need to take a harder look at whether or not we need to cut things from the economic development budget, and apparently take a second, third, and fifth look at things, even though we're about to pass it, unfortunately.
I support the cut because we are in a very difficult budget year. We do significant funding through our staffing, through our NDC contracts, through the BTBC. I believe we support Peasley. There are all kinds of things that we do. We also are required to do our core services. So unfortunately, this is something that we're faced with this year.